Hello everyone. I hope you are all having a great productive week. And I hope today's tech talk will be up to your expectation, inshallah. The title of today's tech talk will be Magical Web with React and Frame and Motion, where we will see how we can animate all web components and even SVG elements in a fluid, smooth, and easy way. The talk will be presented by me, Abderraouf Gattal, who's occupying the role of an Android developer in Project Golands currently in PhazeRo. I am from Algeria, for those who don't know. I'm freshly computer science and engineering graduate. I have been a GDG and WTM Algiers organizer for over 3 years now. Also a GitHub Campus expert for almost 2 years. Actually, the first in the MENA region. I worked also in several freelance projects. I guess that's enough about me. So let's go with the talk. The plan of the day will cover 6 main points, which are first, what is frame emotion, a definition of the API we'll be covering, the reasons why I chose frame emotion, a brief overview, then a quick start guide, which will help us start using the API, some examples, and finally we'll go with a brief live coding demo I've prepared. So what is Frame Emotion? Frame Emotion is an open source project. It is in the enhanced version of PopMotion API, for those who know it, an animation API that was the most used with React till recently, where Frame Emotion took the lead. The API is compatible with the prototyping tool Framer, since they have the same developers team. Frame Emotion is what we call a declarative motion system, but what's great about it is that it combines the simplicity of CSS transitions with the power and flexibility of JavaScript. Those who try to animate stuff using those two will understand what I am saying or what I'm talking about. It looks simple in CSS. It is really complicated to make animation fluid and smooth, while it is easier in JavaScript, but it is a bit complicated to understand how to do it. So Frame Emotion took the good of both approaches and provided the ready-to-go animations and gesture controls, which made really easy to create dynamic natural effects and animations. I may be biased a bit talking about Frame Emotion because I really like the API. I personally was seeing animations as a monster with all the complicated stuff I should add using both JavaScript or CSS or the other APIs. But after trying this API and with the great detailed docs they are offering, animations look really easy to me now, no matter how complicated they were. So I talked about what is Frame Emotion, and now I'll give some points on some bullet points talking about why I chose Frame Emotion to use in first place. So I personally chose Frame Emotion for so many reasons, including the fact that animations are natural and extremely intuitive. The fact that it is really easy to use, especially with its good documentation, and of course the fact that it can be used with React, since I am a React user and a React lover. So also that it offers smooth animations based on any CSS properties, you know or don't know. It's called all CSS properties. It also offers more advanced listeners in addition to the ones built in React, supporting, for example, hover with a listener which is not provided by React, the tab gesture, pawn gesture, and even drag gesture detection listeners, which are more than enough to build great animations. I shouldn't forget that it provides and offers some special cool properties for SVG animations, which make it really easy to animate SVG element by element. Also, the fact that the animated states are rendered on server side, which prevents flashes and assures smooth, natural animations, the contrary for so many animation APIs over there. It does also support styled component for those who like using them. And finally, the fact that the docs are absolutely great, covering almost everything about it and all the available examples everywhere in the web. So the community is pretty cool, and it is going viral currently. Yeah, all that, and the fact that it is open source sure was take me and pushed me really hard to choose this API. So moving to the third point, which is a brief overview about the API. The API has few concepts that we should know, and approaches and flows that he follows and we should understand. For example, the approach of making animations in frame of motion is to set a CSS properties with values on a prop called animate, which is pretty easy. The API also do based on the values we add in the animate prop, automatically generate an animation to the component, which is really smooth, and we can control it by overriding the transition prop, where you can control everything about the animation and even orchestrate it like the way you want. Also, we have gestures, and by gestures, the API means the event listeners, both provided by React and the API itself, like the hover gesture, tap gesture, pawn gesture. The pawn gesture recognizes when a pointer presses down on a component and moves further than 3 pixels, uh, then it is ended when the pointer is released. Some of you may say that it is not different about the drag gesture, but the API in this case uh, agree with you, but there is a simple difference, which is the drag gesture follows the rules of the pawn gestures, but also applies pointer movement to the X and Y axis of the component. So when we use the pawn gesture, the API don't follow the exact credentials of the components, while using drag gesture, it follows the pointer, it follows the movement of the element uh, and gives you the X and Y axis in each position it takes. The API also presents variants, which are a powerful approach to animate the entire subtrees of a component. So in order to animate, let's say, a component having several children, so in order to animate the entire component, we don't need to turn each child to a motion component, but all we need is to turn the parent element to a motion component and animate it using variants, which will allow us to control all the children without turning them to motion components. And all the work will be done by the API, which make it really easy for developers. So talking about motion components are the core of the API. A component were made for each HTML or SVG element, all by adding motion dot before the name of the element. The component will be a motion component right away. Just there is a note that we should take in consideration, is that we should turn only the elements we are intending to animate, because turning all the elements are not even give them treatments or given any motion will impact the performance of the web app or the web page. But when we do take care of that and turn elements to only the elements we need to animate to motion components, it will be pretty smooth and pretty performant. Motion values, on the other hand, are the responsible of tracking the state and velocity of animating values outside of React render life cycle. They are the secret behind the smooth animation and the powerful hooks the API is providing, like use Spring, use transform, and use view port control, which will be explaining in the demo in right a bit. The API also simplified the scroll-based animations using the use viewport control hook, something that we'll see in the demo, inshallah, right away. Now that we covered some of the concepts and approaches the API have, Let's start with a quick guide for installing or using the API. It is like any other package. The install process is really easy using yarn or npm. Just writing a command like yarn add for frame motion or npm install frame motion. Then import the component from frame motion. For example, import motion from frame motion. In this case, we import the motion components. And this allows us to turn each element to a motion component. We can also import the different hooks the API is providing. And after importing the API, all we have to do is unleashing our creativity and making animation as we want. So let's check some examples. Here is the landing page of the API, showing us the great animations they've been made using the API, and how smooth they are. For example, we have here an example that allows us to change the CSS properties and see the animation live. Scrolling the x-axis, it will move in a smooth way, and when we do it faster, the animation takes place as we see. The y-axis as well, the scale, the size of the components, and the smoothness of the animation. Also, we can rotate the different elements. Here, for example, this is a bit complicated case than simple animations, which takes the card and turns it to a model using the animated shared layout, which is a component provided by the API, a pretty recent one actually. It was released in Frame Motion 2.0 a month ago, I guess. Once we click on the card, it turns to a model directly, and the animation is pretty fluid, adding different elements to the component so we can handle it. And all is done in a smooth animation made and handled by the API itself without the intervention of the developer. As we can see in the code, there is the several cards in here with the subtitle and title component elements, and a div with a layout ID. And in the animate presence component, we can see that it has used selected ID to show it when clicked, because it is here using the use state hook to activate selected ID when it is clicked, as we see on the uh, on click listener in here, set selected ID item.id. When we know the selected identifier, it turns to a model, and it handles the animation of the elements of the subtitle and title all by itself. We don't need to add anything else. All is handled by the API itself. We can see here a live demo on the different gestures we can use, like the tap, the drag, and what informations it has about each gesture. What I like is about the way it handles the drag. For example, when I stop dragging at a certain point, it continues the animation to assure the fluidity and that the animation is natural and smooth. We have also here different examples like simple animations using variants here, for example, to control the subtree elements. Here, for example, for gestures while hovering and clicking. For here, for example, is handling SVG animations to draw paths and change the opacity. It's pretty easy to change the path size and the opacity, as we'll see in the demo. Here on the scroll example, it handles scroll-based animations uh, in a great way, using only the use viewport scroll hook, which is pretty easy also. Here, for example, we can handle the drag gesture. To see more examples, we can also check the documentation the API offers with explanations and examples of code and all. So for example, in here, the animation is pretty easy to use. All you have to do is add in motion dot before the name of the element, which is div in this case, add in the animate prop and change the scale to 2. The animation is handled automatically by the API in a smooth way. We can customize the animation by overriding the transition prop. For example, in this example, he changed the duration to 0.5 seconds. So each time the animation will take 0.5 seconds to finish. We can see the example in details when using sandbox, which is provided by the documentation in almost each example. Here, for example, we use the keyframes. Keyframes provide how to say it, a sequence of animation of the same element. For example, in this case, as we see, we change the scale, the rotation, and the border radius on 5 sequences. First, we take the scale as 1, rotation 0 degree, and the border radius takes 20%. But after that, for the scale, it changes to 2, 2, 1, 1, while the rotation 0 to 270 degree, which provides the rotation animation, while the radius of the element is changed to 50%, which make it look like a circle. The loop effect is handled in transition prop. It is not shown in here in this code portion, but it is really easy. All you have to do is just specify the repeat type, either loop or a yo-yo or something like that, which is really explained, pretty much explained in the API in the animation section. Also, we talked about variants, which allow us to control the subtrees of animations of a subtree of an element of a component. In here, for example, all we had to do is to add motion dot for the nav element and keep the items without animations. We handled the variants with an open state, given the opacity to setting the opacity to 1 and the exposition to 0. Then on the closed state, opacity to 0 and x to minus 100%, which allow us when we click the component to open the drawer in a pretty much beautiful animation and smooth animation. We can see it in detail in Sandbox, of course. Gesture animations in here are pretty easy to use. For example, all we have to do in any component, of course, HTML. There is a bit point in here, which is that we can handle the gestures using while hover and while tap. For example, drag is another case. All we have to do is change in the attributes. It's good with HTML elements, but with SVG elements, since they are not, they don't have a physical presence, it doesn't really work using while hover. All we have to do is to set one of the React states and using them to know if they are hovered or not, which make it a bit complicated using gestures with SVG elements. But with HTML elements, it's pretty much fluid and smooth. Or for example, in here, we changed the scale to 1.1 while hovering and to 0.9 while tapping, which will make it look smaller when we click on it. For the drag example, all you have to do is get in a div, for example, in this case, add in motion dot, add in the drag attributes, drag constraint to specify, for example, in this top minus 50, to specify the constraints that we should not pass or move, or we should respect, the element should respect. So in this case, the element cannot pass minus 50 pixels in top, minus 50 pixels in left, 50 pixels in right, and 50 pixels on bottom. So it is draggable, but we can't pass those constraints specified as we saw in a pretty easy way. For motion value, for example, in here, which is, as we said, which does, as we said, track the state and velocity of every animating value, it makes the animations really easy, especially using the use transform hook, which takes care, which in this case, for example, tracks the x, which is a motion value that we set, using use motion value to track the position of the x each time we move it, even outside of React's render's life cycle. Use transform in this case takes the value of x and put it on an interval from minus 100 to 0 and from 0 to 100. And then switch, for example, this case, give you the value of background switches between the degree of the three colors set in the third array. For example, if we go to minus 100, the color of the background will take the first color. If we go back to the 0, the value of the background will take the middle color. And if we go to 100, the value of the color will take the third. And between those intervals, the value of the color will change in a smooth way handled by the API itself. For scroll-based animations, we can see the viewport, this use viewport scroll hook, which takes and tracks the scrolling position, and then apply it on the path length attribute here, which will make a great animation on the SVG, which will make the SVG, which will draw with SVG as we scroll. We'll see something similar in the demo in a bit. For the exit animations, this is a slider using only one component, which is motion, which is image. You're applying the motion dot and putting it in animate presence to feel to track the change of the images in the slideshow. And all we have to do is change the image in using simple code using JavaScript. Just change the path of the image, and when we set the initial state of the animation is all handled using the motion value. When we do the exit probe, for example, we'll make the opacity 0 for each image. When it is changed, the animation will return the opacity to 1 when for the new image. It is really cool and really simple. You should check the code on Open Sandbox. Enough of examples, and let me switch the sharing screen. Okay. So I prepared a small demo using creating a React app using React app package, which is easily MPX create React new project. Then I removed the animations of the logo. The animation of the logo provided in the example from CSS, so we can animate it using the frame of motion API. I installed frame of motion using yarn. Then, as we see in here, added some code. We'll explain each part and remove and comment it to see the impact, and even add some tweaks if you want to. Please be interactive in this section. So all we have to do is, for example, before uncommenting the code, there is no animation in the example. All we have to do is import in the motion component from frame of motion. Go to, for example, to animate the image component, add in motion dot image, then manipulate it, use animate props. We can, for example, in this case, using keyframes to animate the image using a scale, changing the scale and the rotation of the component. When we save and we go refresh to the page, we can see it moves in a particular way. It change rotation and change scale. We can manipulate it as we want. For example, if we removed the three last cases, and we kept only 2 scenarios, we'll see that it rotates and then stops animation. We can manipulate and orchestrate the animation using the transition prop, changing whatever we want. For example, if we want it to repeat for infinitely, we can just add repeat infinity in transition prop, and the animation will start animating without stopping. We can add a delay between each animation using repeat delay, for example, which will make it pause for 1 second before starting the animation again. Also, we can manipulate loads of attributes like the duration, like the repeat type. For example, repeat type, I can set it to loop or yo-yo, which will make it animate the return to its okay, that's a string, which will make it animate the return to its first state before changing. There is a lot of options to handle in both transition and animate. As we said, in animate, all CSS attributes you can imagine can make an impact in here. After seeing, we can also remove or change, not using the keyframes, for example, scale to 2 directly without using several scenarios, and rotate to 90 degrees. Two is pretty big to the screen, so let's keep it 1.5. Let's make the duration like 1 second, since it looks pretty slow. The animation takes place and loops as we set it in transition to repeat infinitely. We can manipulate, as we said, each prop, each CSS prop, this in an easy way, using either keyframes or using direct values. We make fluid, cool animations in here. For example, let's handle this time. Let's see the gestures is a live example of gestures, motion, turning the paragraph element to a motion, a component, then adding simply while hover to handle the hovering gesture. For example, let's this time change the color of the text. All we have to do is add in the color attribute and the value. When we hover over the text, the color will change in a smooth way. For example, let's say move scale in here to make it clear to see. Let's scale it T2 to 2, for example, while hovering. The text on hover will be double its size. We can also handle click, for example, using while tap. For example, when we click, let's rotate it 10 degrees. All I have to do is click in, and the animation is really smooth and looks pretty natural. We didn't cover the drag example. Let me apply the animation on the image element. So all we have to do in this case is adding drag, then applying drag constraints. Give me a second to check the documentations. So gestures using the API. Everything is in details, animation helpers. There is the drag option, and you can see how we can do it, either using layout animations or where it explains what are the possible values for the drag constraints. For example, in this case, we can add either 1, 2, or cover the 4 sides in this case. Set the reference, of course, to a parent component, and it will make it really smooth to work. For example, let's copy this portion of code. To use ref, import using ref. Okay, come on. From React. Drag constraint, we need another. Let's, for example, set as it did only left and right, 0 and 300. Add a parent to control, to manipulate to assure the constraints. And finally, using the constraint ref. That way we can manipulate it according to the size of the div. So refresh. What is the problem in here? Oh yeah. The div is exactly the same size. So for example, let me add a style to make bigger. Height set to 100 VH, for example. So in that case, we can drag okay, I'm having an issue in here. Should we pause for time or just?
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think I'd like to kind of open it up for discussion. I'm sure it'll take a few minutes just to figure it out. It's not a big issue here, but I'd like to be a little bit more interactive. So I think maybe we can kind of pause here and open it up for a discussion with the teams. Right?
Sure. Does anyone have any comments or something?
I just wanted to say I think it's really a great tool, and I think it's very easy to use. I regret not using this before. I definitely checked it out, and I thought it was like hard to use. But you know, thank you so much for demoing it. showing us like how easy it is to like get started pretty quickly. And if no one has any questions, could you potentially demo the path animation?
Yeah, that's the second part of the demo.
Oh, okay, perfect. Cool. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Well, I think that this part will take a bit of time. So why don't we just move to the second part so we can demo the path animation and the scrolling based animations. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. I did import the example from another page and made an inline condition for those who didn't understand it. So I can show the example or the second component will appear on the screen directly. That's just a few portion of code to implement or to show a content to make it scrollable. And we had set an SVG in here, an SVG in here to see how to apply scroll-based animations and also the path animation. So go into the example code. We should import use effect and use state in this case, because we're going to use some states to manipulate and use some hooks, the API hooks to manipulate them as well. We'll import the motion component to make the elements motion components, of course. We'll import use viewport scroll to handle the scrolling and track the scrolling. We'll import the use spring, which I will explain in a bit. Also, the use transform hook, which was explained in examples, and we'll redo it again in this case. So first thing we'll be doing is that it is a must to copy the SVG code inside inside the React components in order to animate them, because if we just may put them in an image component, that won't allow us to manipulate each element or each part of the SVG. In this case, for example, we'll be working on how to make the animation of the progress according to the scrolling progress with this circle in here. So all we have to do is, for example, as we are going to show the path length animation, it is pretty easy to use. All we have to do is add in path length to style. Path length is a variable containing what? Containing, it is a constant containing an animation set by useSpring. useSpring is a hook that helps animate into a new state in a smooth way without needing to go to React's lifecycle rendering. In here, what we do using useSpring in this case is tracking the Y range variable, which takes use transform and takes scroll Y progress. In this case, scroll Y progress uses the use viewport scroll to track the scrolling position using the hook. The use viewport scroll hook knows the exact position, the scrolling position, and puts it in the scroll Y progress variable. According and depending to this this variable, the value of scroll Y progress in an interval of 0 to 0.9, Y range contains a value from a range of 0 to 1 in order to give us the opportunity to see that that the content is ended before we reach the bottom. Because if we used from the interval from 0 to 1 in the use transform in the cases of scroll according to the values in scroll Y progress, this will turn to 1 when the scroll position is really reached at the end. But when we use 0.9, that will give us an opportunity to see the animations before we reach the exact end. So we took Y range to be between 0 and 1 according to the value of scroll Y progress, which is taken using the use view port scroll hook. Then using that value, we use the ring hook, which sets and animates and turns to animate the elements according to the new states found and the new value found in Y range, setting the stiffness and the damping to whatever value do you want. Stiffness and damping are properties we use in animation. For those that use the CSS animation, JavaScript animation, they should know it. They should know both of them. So after changing path length to a specific animation using use spring, then we just use the style props and set path length in this case. Everything will be working according to scroll position. Just one that we should add, okay, is to turn the path to a motion component. Because if we don't turn the path to a motion component, the animation won't be taken in consideration. In this case, as we see, when the scrolling position at 0 point, the circle is hidden, but when we scroll, the circle is drawn. We should take in consideration that the path length takes the borders, takes the path itself. It doesn't animate the content of the circle, just takes the border, which we managed in here in the style using the stroke, turning the color to white and giving it a width of 5 so we can see it clearly. Path length, as we said, takes in charge animating the stroke of the SVG and only the stroke of the path. The fill that has other things to do. For example, in the animation we saw in the landing page, they manipulated it using the opacity, so it will be shown after the stroke is drawn. We have several other possibilities. For example, as we see in here, the animation starts from the left of the circle. We can change that by using either the rotate option, which will make it start from the top, or using the scale X or scale Y, which will reverse the direction of the line. For example, it was going from left to right. Now it goes from in the other flow. We can even change, for example, the scale Y, the Y scale. Let's see it before adding it. It's the animation goes like that. So when we add scale Y -1, it will change to go from bottom to top instead of from top to bottom. We can manipulate it in different ways like that. We have seen how to handle drawing the circle. Now let's manage the check icon inside the circle. What we need, the anticipated or the desired flow, is that the check mark will appear when we reach the bottom of the scrolling page. So what we have to do is go into the path, the check path. In this case, turn it first to a motion component, then manipulate it. We should make sure that the component won't take the initial value in considerations. So the value or the check icon will be hidden in first case, or in the initial case. If we didn't set initial to false, the icon will be shown in first case, and that's not what we desire. We desire to be hidden until we reach the bottom. After setting initial to false, we can say, wait a second, yes, I should first of all set the animate prop. In this case, animate prop takes path length as uh, as the way of styling it. The property that we should style, we instead of doing it according to the scrolling advancement or scrolling position, in this case, we decided to make it directly to one, to make it one directly when we reach the bottom, which means when is complete is set to true. Is complete is set using the use state hook. First value or initial value is false. Then using the set is complete using the use effect hook when the Y range changes. This value on change is also provided by the API. So it tracks the Y range and knows when it changes. So using it in the use effect hook will make it pretty easy to know the exact value of the changes happened by Y range. Then when V reach is equal or more than one, the value of is complete will be set to true. And in this case, the animation will, the value of the animation will change in the animate prop. Just refresh the page. Let's say they saved. Yeah, I mixed the values. Instead of using 1, 0, I should change the values in here in the condition. It's true. Don't know. Yes, that's it. I thought that was the problem. Using the scale, Y has changed the logic of showing the instead of being invisible then appears, it wanted to do the inverse. So after just applying this view spring hook and the animation, when we reach the bottom, the check mark will appear all by itself in a smooth way, smooth animation. Of course, enough of the circle. We'll be manipulating the second icon in here, the second SVG in here, which is a motorcycle. Let me show you. Inspect. Okay, SVG, change the position, which is a motorcycle. The idea is to make the motorcycle cross the screen when we reach the bottom of the scrolling value. So all we have to do is, first of all, changing the Y position to Y pose. Y pose is a constant we added using the use transform value, which will take in consideration scroll Y progress, a value from 0 to 0.9, and gives a value to Y pose from an interval from 4,000 to 0 that will animate, that will change the Y position, the Y position to a certain value according to the position we are having a scroll Y progress. So in this case, after setting, what is it? Okay, after setting, yes, I should add motion.svg since I'm adding animation in here. Each component. That's it. So now when we move the value change. The interval is not being in right direction. Since I'm changing the the y axis, it will go down. So the point is to using the y position in this case is to make sure the SVG returns to its position when we go up without crossing the content. In order to apply the proper animation, we should uncomment the animate prop and the transition prop. In this case, we set the X position from each either 1500 value or 0 according to the state is complete, if we reach the bottom or not. We set the transition to, so the animation will take 2 seconds to change the state. In this case, when we are scrolling, nothing will happen, but when we reach the bottom, the motorcycle will pass under the content, and when we go up, it will return to its position without crossing the content because we changed the Y position. So it went beyond the screen and went back to its position. That way, when we reach the bottom again, the animation will happen in a smooth way and won't cross the content and won't cause any disturbance to the user to see. That's all for the demo. Is there anything you want me to add or something like that while we are coding? Nothing?
I think that
Okay.
was pretty clear, Abderraouf, thank you. But reactors, if anyone wants to ask or have any feedback or thoughts.
No, it was cool. From my side, it was cool. I've heard of it. I never used it. Just like Ahmed said a while before. Because trying new stuff kind of scared me, and I'll still go to my old CSS ways to do it directly in CSS. So yeah, this was super cool to look at, and the way he did it actually looks so easy now. So I'll definitely try it the next time. I won't use direct CSS because it's hell.
I guess that's all for the demo. So to the presentation, let's start opening things up. After seeing that, all a developer can do is following, as Duane Michael said, trust that little voice in your head that says, wouldn't it be interesting if, and then do it. That approach of thinking would push us to explore really complicated animations.
I started imagining horrible
because complicated.
things. Sorry, go on. sorry. I just had a very bad joke in my head.
Actually, making complicated animations is based on simple animations. The way you imagine each attribute of CSS attribute, the change will make pretty cool and smooth animation, especially with the power of the API. So it's all up to your little voice saying, wouldn't it be interesting? And your motivation to do it, of course. For additional resources, yeah. I don't really think we need them because the API covers all the details, and it really covers everything and explains it in a pretty clear way. The website contains pretty cool examples that we could interact with. The examples in the API are available in Sandbox, which will give us the opportunity to see how they did it. And of course, there is the demo code that you can clone and comment the code or add any changes you want, or just create a React project and install the API and start tweaking around. That's all. Thank you And I wonder if there were any questions.
Excuse me. I think Mariam is asking, can we use it with class components and stuff?
Using what?
Using this library with class components. I guess the answer is yes, though. Yeah, in the chat section, Mariam is asking.
Okay, let me check the chat section.
The Zoom one. It's only one question. She was just asking if it's possible to do it in class components.
That's a class component. What do you mean by a class component, for example, in here? Are we talking about attributing a class to a div or what exactly?
Not sure about her question though.
I didn't really understand the question.
Yeah. My question is, we are using the hooks and class components when we using classes in React.
Yeah, we use classes to style components, right? Mariam?
Yeah.
We use classes to style components. The component, when we add motion dot, is turning them to a motion component, is exactly the same as an HTML component. We can apply classes, we can apply style, we can do anything we want, only that they added the backend treatment of animations. So they could handle the API animations in an automatic way without you struggling on how to do them in a smooth, natural way.
I think what she meant was the examples were in like showing hooks and functional components, and there's other ways to doing React, which is class component.
The class programming approach.
Yeah.
Well, it can be used in the class programming approach, but it would be more efficient to use it in the functional programming, since it depends on using hooks, which is something we don't use really with class components, the class programming approach or paradigm.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, nothing. No problem. Any other question?
Nothing from my side.
Nothing from my side as well.
All right, thank you for your presence. If you have any further questions or want some advices, you can reach me on my either on my personal website or off codes, or the PhazeRo email, Twitter, or Slack. Thank you for your time, and I hope you like the presentation.